Welcome, everybody. This is episode 18 of the Tilted Lawyer podcast, and let's get right into it. Darrell Brooks, I think we have to ask the question of whether or not the judge in that case pitched a perfect game. Whether or not she sat as a judge and just performed a perfect trial. And as you guys remember, this was Darrell Brooks, the sovereign citizen, the guy that doesn't accept value for value in return and challenges subject matter jurisdiction, who ran over 76 people, killing 6, including little 8-year-old Jackson Sparks. And he was sentenced yesterday to 6 consecutive life sentences, including all of the other remaining counts, multiplied by 17 and a half years with the enhancers for a total of over 1,000 years in prison. And we were talking a lot about the conduct of the judge in the Parkland case versus the conduct of the judge here in the Waukesha case. They moved fairly quickly in this case to get through the sentencing. I feel like I'm so low in my chair. Like, I don't know. I'm adjusting to these new settings. I don't know if it's the lights. I don't know if it's just the whole.
It's a different environment. It's
I feel different. like I'm on fire. Yeah. I mean, there's the candle behind me, but I just feel like claustrophobic. I'm adjusting. Give me a little bit of time. But for Darrell Brooks, this young man, I say young man because he's 40 years old, is never again going to see the light of day as a free man. He is
he's going to die in prison.
Going to die in prison.
Just stating it like a fact.
The facts that came out in this case, with what he did to his girlfriend and, his pursuit of her, and how I think the judge, she made some remarks about if Nicholas Cruz and that other gentleman that intervened prior to him stepping in that red SUV and mowing down all of those people in Waukesha County at the Christmas parade, she opined that young lady was in danger, as in he may well have killed her the way that he was going on. I mean, punching her in the face with the closed fist. He tried to run her over with the car, causing substantial injuries. And he has a pending case for domestic violence and assault and battery and attempted murder. In that case, that there was a pretrial hearing and we're going to get to see a little bit of that footage.
So even though he's been sentenced, there's still the case pending, and that's still going to go through? Well,
let's look at it from this perspective. Jocelyn, who is not an attorney, so people in the comments, please leave little Jocelyn alone. These are, this is the TLP crew. This is my staff.
Yeah.
They are not attorneys, so their opinions are those of lay people. They got some heat in the comments for not having a good legal analysis of some of the issues, but they're not expected to do that, as they are just regular folks just like you and everybody else. I am the only attorney. There's only room for one attorney in this place. Well, 2.
Well, there's 2. Yes, exactly.
Well, because today she's not with us. Yeah. And so for right now, it's just me. And Ileana will be rejoining us in the near future. But as for this case, they had, getting back to your question, he's just been sentenced to over 1,000 years of prison. We already know that there's no chance he's ever going to see the light of day as a free man. Yet he has this other case involving his girlfriend who was victimized by him for his violent outburst against her. Put yourself in her position. Imagine that you were the victim of somebody that did such a thing, right? She has her own ideas of, wanting to feel justice in her case. And yeah, that guy has been convicted. Yeah. But she wants her day in court, and she's entitled to it. She doesn't have to. She doesn't have to pursue it. And matter of fact, oftentimes the district attorneys in these kinds of cases will speak to the victims. Do you want to go forward? Do you want to sit in front of this guy? As she already did. She sat there and she testified in the trial in the Waukesha case, because of course she was involved in that altercation with him prior to him entering the red SUV and running over all those people. She got up and she faced her abuser. She took an oath and she gave testimony, and she looked him dead in the eye, and she told the truth in that case. She wants to have the opportunity to do it with respect to what's happened to her.
She wants to seek her own justice.
Her own justice, yes. And her story is coming out, and we're gonna talk about that in the not so distant future. But Darrell Brooks, if you didn't know anything about this parade, maybe you thought that his SUV really did malfunction in the brake feature. He couldn't stop and he accidentally mowed over 76 people. Maybe you think that he had some mental health issues and isn't deserving of empathy. Darrell Brooks has been a bad guy for a really long time. Registered sex offender, violent criminal many times over, and he belongs in prison. You're going to hear some of the comments from the judge as she's reading over his rap sheet about the kind of guy that this is. And he had his opportunity yesterday. Now, victim impact statements are one part of a sentencing hearing. There's the other part where, are there mitigating circumstances to why I shouldn't impose the harshest of all sentences against you in this case? And Darrell Brooks, representing himself, did his best. He spoke for 2 hours in that case, and largely what he said, he offered a mild apology for maybe 2 minutes. I'm really sorry for what I did. I can't go back and take it back. It is, I apologize and to all of those families. And then he started talking about himself.
Then what did the other hours consist of?
Oh, exactly my point. Because I sat here in this office as I was trying to work and do other stuff, waiting for him to say something of any value. And it was maddening because he just kept on circling back to trying to garner sympathy for himself.
Did he build another fort with his discovery?
No, he didn't build a fort with his discovery, but he did get kicked out of the courtroom again.
Oh, again, okay.
Imagine.
Shocking.
Yeah.
So you are trying to appeal to the judge for leniency. Your Honor, I apologize for what I did. I am a monster. And here I stand before you with nothing to defend myself other than pure and utter sorrow and remorse for what I did to those victims.
See, that's what I would imagine for like the entire 2 hours.
That is what a defense attorney's supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
He was his own attorney.
Oh, that's right.
So I would not have let him speak. I mean, of course, I can't control if he speaks or not. If he wants to speak, he's going to speak. But I would have offered my own. And this is what I bring up Clarence Darrow a lot on this show. And part of that is because his best work as an attorney, going back in the early 1900s, late 1800s is when he was a practicing attorney. But his most famous cases are death penalty cases where he spared the lives of disenfranchised youths who committed heinous acts of murder and other things deserving of the death penalty under the laws of the state back then. And he would go and he would, for, hours on end, talk about their upbringing and how, they started off as a child and, he played his first baseball game when he was 6 years old and he had these dreams that he wanted to be a shortstop for the New York Yankees. And every single day he would go outside and practice and work on a swing and wait for his father to come home so that he could work on, his skills to become someday a professional baseball player. But sadly, rather than coming home to play with his son, his father would go home and beat on his mother and then beat on him. And then he would wonder why he wasn't good enough for his dad to go work on his baseball game with him. That kind of stuff, 2 hours of that, you're painting a picture, you're exposing what this person went through. Mm-hmm. You're not taking focus off of the victims, but you're painting the picture of this could have been any of us.
It could have been.
And he got a bad deck, and it led him to what he did. He's going to go to jail for the rest of his life, but could he die? Or is there something redeemable in him that we might spare his life so that he could do some good on the inside? Because he's already going to be locked up. Do we just kill him now? Or should we give him a chance to at least live out his days in prison? That was what Clarence Darrow would do. That's what defense attorneys have done. I've had to do those kinds of statements in the past. Please forgive my client. Yes, he did these very heinous actions, but he's had a rough time, Had it gone a different way, he could have been something greater. Yeah. And so I'm asking for leniency, not on his behalf, but just because as a society, I think there's some value to be derived from this man who did something so terrible. There was this guy that was executed, I want to say 10 years ago. He was from the Bloods and the Crips, this gangster, he was a multiple convicted murderer. he was on death row, but he rehabilitated himself while on death row, and he would write child's books. And his name escapes me. I'm thinking it's like Tuco or something like that, but that's Breaking Bad. It's not Tuco. It's like I forget his name, but he was executed. But in the midst of his stay in death row, he wrote child's books to help children with their self-esteem, and he tried to do some good before he was ultimately executed by lethal injection.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of arguments that you make, but you don't sit up here and say he literally attacked the judge. He attacked the prosecutor. Let her say, hey,
as he's been doing the whole time. Yeah.
I respect you, but I will never forgive you for how you went about it. And to be honest with you, you're not all that bright. And he was literally going on about that.
Oh my God.
During the victim impact statements, I mean, he was, remember Nicholas Cruz, how he would sit there in his chair and just blankly kind of stare off like he was the
that
Joker.
Stare.
Yeah. But he wouldn't deviate from that. You know why? Because his attorney said, hey, I don't care what happens. I don't care how bad it pisses you off. You're not going to do or show or say anything other than empathy for these victims. You're going to sit there and be quiet. If you can't think of anything, you stay perfectly still. And I suspect it's why he appeared to be so robotic when they were going through the impact statements. Darrell Brooks was sitting there by himself. And so his first instinct when he's challenged like that
is to...
He acts out physically. He tries to stare. He was rolling his eyes at some of the victims. He was pounding his chest. He was fake applauding their speeches. And, you know, these are people that are getting up there to talk about their mother that was murdered or about their 8-year-old son that was murdered. Children getting up on the witness stand to talk about how he impacted their childhood and how they missed their grandma, they missed their brother, they missed their dad. And the judge is seeing all of this. This is her portion of the case. This is her opportunity to say what she has to say. So she's watching him very carefully and full view of her. I mean, she's not missing anything. I got to tell you, this judge in this case was one of the sharpest, most empathetic bulldogs of a judge I've ever seen. This trial, I've seen a lot of trials in person. I've had my own trials. This performance by this judge, I started off the show thinking that she may have just pitched a perfect game, performed the absolute perfect trial from a judicial standpoint that she could have. She avoided any kind of appeal that this guy may have conceivably had. She was outright defiant in the people's call to hold him in contempt or kick him out or do all of this stuff because she wanted to make absolutely sure that his constitutional rights, that he had every opportunity to exercise them. And if he was going to not exercise them, she was trying to get him to waive those rights. And all right, well, then you're going to get kicked out of the next room. She tried so hard to make sure that he had no opportunity to break this case because that was this guy's only hope. His only objective, it seemed, in hearing his defense, because he did not have a cogent plan. He had no idea how to question those witnesses. He didn't know what to do on cross-examination. He didn't know what to do on direct examination. He didn't know how to give an opening statement, didn't know how to do a closing statement, and he didn't know what to focus on in any of these things, let alone his appeals to the judge about why she should have mercy on him in this case.
Basically a perfect example of why you don't represent yourself.
Oh, I've never seen it go well.
Yeah.
In a criminal arena, I've never seen it go well. In family law, I've seen it go. I mean, family law is different. There's a lot of people that represent themselves. But in a criminal arena, it's always a bad look.
Yeah, no.
I've never seen it even done remotely well, even by people that you would perceive to be intelligent or have the aptitude to do such a thing. I bring up I've talked about, who's that serial killer? The one guy.
Ted
Bundy.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to talk about him. Like, he was a law student. He was representing himself, and he looked awfully bad. Yeah. And he was a law student.
Yeah.
Now let's portray it as a civil person, somebody that has nothing to do with the law or any law knowledge, like from school.
I think that when you find a lot of people representing themselves, a lot of their performance is affected by what they see on TV.
Oh, definitely. They see like Judge Judy or something.
Because
or Harvey Specter.
When I was in law school and I was on the mock trial team, everything I knew about what I wanted to be an attorney was from the movies.
Yeah, that's where you get your knowledge from.
And so I put on my Matthew McConaughey and, I did my...
You did the accent too?
I may or may not have done the accent. I don't know if I did or not, but I got slammed so hard for, hey, Dick, you want to tone this down.
Yeah.
You got several objectives. Get to the point. Nobody wants to hear your fluffy language, your flowery language. Nobody wants to see you perform, which there is an aspect of performance,
yes.
But you have to have permission from the audience to perform. You're not just going to walk in there and people are going to be sitting there captivated by your brilliance and your charisma. I mean, there's attorneys out there that try to do that, but ultimately when it comes down to it, I believe that jurors take their jobs seriously.
Yeah.
And their objective is to administer justice. And yeah, you might be the one with the shiny suit and the slick language and, the legalese, but the jurors are going to trust the person that makes the most sense in the courtroom. And if that's not you, you're going to lose your case. I don't care how good you look. I don't care how charismatic you are. People are a little smarter than that. We're more sophisticated than that, especially in 2022, going into 23.
Did you just quote Jerry Spence?
Did I call Jerry? Did I do what?
You just quoted Win Your Case, the book.
Oh, no, but that's one of Jerry Spence's, that's one of his tenets.
Yes.
And you know what? He's not the only person I've heard that from. You spoke to one of my former professors. You
yes,
don't have
I
to
did.
name him, because you had a very big interview as of recently. And one of my personal favorite law school professors said the exact same thing when he was litigating cases. And I forget where he went to law school. I don't have to name it, but his point was the same. He would go in there and he would argue a contracts case, and he would be intimidated because he's going up against this, $1 million law firm with all of their shining attorneys and showing up with 5 associates and, buckets full of evidence and wheeling in all of their files in a wheelbarrow. And here he is, just this guy quoting from the UCC and, all of the guts and fervor of a guy that, doesn't know what he's going up against. And, and here they are in their shiny, slick suits, and they're trying to, get one over on the judge, and they're trying to present their case, and they think that they have it because of the mere presentation. And he, with everything that he had, got up there believing in his case and simply quoted with all of the conviction from his preparation and his belief in his client's case that he was the one that should prevail, and he did. Mm-hmm. And he learned a very valuable lesson. He was the first person I actually learned that idea from. Jerry Spence, I learned about him more when I was in throes of mock trial. He was one of the big famous trial attorneys that we would try to study from, and they would have others that would come in. But the strategy to try to go in there and win over the courtroom with your brilliance without having permission from the audience to do that is a losing strategy.
It's like with children, like they can sense when you're, lying or being dishonest. And it's the same thing with people. They know when you're bullshitting, excuse my language, but.
You don't have to apologize on this show.
It's
you might
the
have to
fair
apologize to my
truth.
mom,
Yeah.
but you're going to apologize to me. What was that, Melissa?
Nothing. That's the fair truth. And coming back to the point about everything we see or hear about the law is from TV. I actually had that conversation with one of my high school classmates. He just got a job here in California in a personal injury law in Newport Beach. And he was actually talking to me about what it was. He wanted me to talk to him about what it was like working for a firm here in California, because a year ago he had interviewed for a firm in Florida, but unfortunately he didn't get the job. But for this one, he did. And he was like, I want you to talk to me a little bit about how is it working in an actual firm in the United States. And I was like, the first thing you need to know, this is not Suits. This is not How to Get Away with Murder. This is not Legally Blonde. And I could just keep going. I love those movies. I love those shows. I'm going to point that out because I do. I'm a hardcore fan of Elle Woods, okay? But we need to be real.
Yeah.
We need to have our feet on the ground. It's nothing like that.
No.
Like maybe 3 to 4% of the little chim smash.
Every now and then, but it's not 100%.
Yeah.
I
No,
used
it's
to love
not.
the show Suits. Imagine, every time I write a motion, I'm going to walk into opposing counsel's office, and here you go. Whoosh.
See, I've
Throw
never seen
the
a single
motion on their
episode.
desk.
That's Harvey
Oh,
Specter.
it is so just over the top.
But
ridiculous.
I did watch How to Get Away with Murder, and that one was insane to me. I was like, this is what lawyers go through.
I didn't get as into that show as Suits, but I did watch Suits. Better Call Saul is my go-to.
Oh, yeah. Better Call Saul, that's another one. Scandal, is one of the OGs.
To be honest with you, it's a better representation of what law is actually like. Coming up as a lawyer, as a new practicing attorney, that's more close to what it's actually like. You know, having to get your foot and bust your ass because you don't know any better. You don't know how to do anything. It would be so
interesting to see lawyers like take on what's like the most realistic TV show or movie out there.
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
Doctors have done it.
Yeah.
With medical dramas, and they have listed the Good Doctors, the number one. It will be really fun to just see as an attorney's perspective.
I'd have to watch a lot more TV.
Yeah.
Right now, the only one I know is Better Call Saul and Suits. I don't know any other ones in that.
You know, you can say this
which one's the worst and which one's like the best, the most
Suits
accurate.
Is terrible. I wish I had an office up there, and then like it was in all about that guy's in a suit all of the time. All of the time. Like he wakes up in a suit. He's like, it's like 11 o'clock at night. He's still in his office wearing a suit.
That's horrible.
As soon as I get back to the office, I'm trying to change out of my suit because I hate it so much.
Donna's in heels from like 8 a.m. till midnight, something like that.
Oh, yeah. And then, you know, it's just the over-the-top drama, soap opera stuff. And,
it's part of the show.
Well, you got to entertain,
we need to
folks.
Put on a show, exactly.
But getting back to Darrell Brooks, I think that we should take a look. Okay, so getting back while this guy is spilling out his heart.
Without warning, on a joy-filled Sunday in November,
hold on, let me fix the audio.
Devastated by an unfathomable act of evil. My mother, Virginia Sorensen, Jenny.
There we go.
A loving and devoted grandmother to 6, mother to 3, sister to 3.
So anyway, I don't want to play because we don't have a whole lot of time, but this guy is giving an impact statement and then just watch his reaction while he's sitting there.
Emptiness in all our hearts. Judge Dorow, thank you for overseeing this trial. You define excellence in your profession, and we are so grateful you were assigned to this case. Thank you to the 12 jurors of this strong community who carefully and unbiasedly listened to the evidence and brought back 76 guilty verdicts. Thank you, Sue Opper, Leslie Basie, Zach Witshaw, and the entire Waukesha District Attorney's team
want to be there.
He looks like
for
he's
ensuring
so
Mr. Brooks
done.
would not escape the consequences of his despicable actions.
He's looking at him like he's pissed off.
I love how he's
Thank
dressed
you,
in
Detective Tom
orange.
Casey.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Detective Casey came to my dad's house in the early morning hours
Oh
on
my
November
gosh.
22nd
He just did it.
to deliver
Oh
the
my
heart-wrenching
God.
confirmation.
And then this goes on for a little bit. And then just this look of utter disdain for the victim. This is a victim. He's supposed to sit there. He would have done better sitting there just like Nicholas Cruz.
Yep.
Other
Just a
abused
blank
women.
stare.
Stupid look on his face. But
I want to thank the
doing all
first
this
responders
stuff.
and medical personnel at the parade who rendered aid to the injured and attempted to save my mother's life that night. And a nurse that we met at the memorial one night.
But again, I would say that's another example of why you really need a legal team behind you if you're facing one of the circumstances.
Yeah, because, I mean, experience goes a long way in these kinds of things. But just look at his
To
mannerisms. And the
administer
judge is seeing
my
all of
thoughts
these
of
things.
justice. As Mr. Brooks droned on about where the plaintiff
my God.
was in this case.
Wait,
Who
is
the
he in
plaintiff was in this
cuffs?
case.
Yeah.
Ah,
There's no
okay.
reason
You've already
to hide that
heard.
anymore.
Yeah.
There are many
No reason to
plaintiffs
put him in a
here.
suit.
I'm here, right now.
I
I've
hope
been
he
here
likes
all
the color
along.
orange. He's going to be wearing that for a while.
And now he gets to hear from me and will from many other plaintiffs before this day is over. He is simply a...
And I'll speed through that, but yeah.
Oh my God.
This guy.
She
He's-
continued to
Look at
allow
this
him
guy.
to drive it and enabled his violence
I'm simply
and
trying to
murders
highlight
that
his
Sunday
mannerisms. I
afternoon.
know the victim impact statement.
The other is John Chisholm,
My
the
God.
Milwaukee County District Attorney,
rocking back
whose
and forth in his
misguided and
chair,
ill-conceived
closing
bail
his
reform
eyes,
policies
disrespecting
led a
this
violent,
gentleman
multi-convicted
thoroughly.
felon back into our community and onto our streets while already out on bail
love that
from a
bailiff,
previous
by the way.
violent felony. Mr. Chisholm disregarded his duty to keep the people of this community and state safe.
These were my two favorite impact statements, by the way. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I just want you to catch, when he's like almost mocking the victims.
On November 21st, you killed my mother. And in this courtroom, I watched you run her down and her broken body slide across the concrete. This woman loved and she was loved. You ran her down like she was nothing. And since that day, you have shown no remorse. You've offered no explanation for your atrocities. It offends me that you're sitting here breathing while she is not. You are a monster. You deserve contempt and death. Sadly, with no death penalty in this state, I can only hope they lock you away someplace so deep the rats chew on your fingers at night.
Oh my God.
As for me, this will never be over until the day I'm pissing on your grave. I think it would be fair to say that for your crimes, even God hates you.
Oh my God.
Are you sure that's not you? Just saying.
Wow. That's wow.
I don't know what that means, by the way, but he's basically
just mocking him, yeah. Now, is there any sense of rehabilitation, do you think, in this guy? Because he shows no remorse.
Thank the court. You,
No,
Your
right.
Honor, and your staff for getting us here today. I don't know how you did. You kept us under 4 weeks.
This guy's
And,
trying to call
this
him
is all
out. He
gonna be
speaks for a
wrapped up.
while. I'm just going to take it to the end because he calls him out for like rolling his eyes at everybody.
Out of the window, looking back with a smile of satisfaction on your face. Laughing at an inside joke that at the time I didn't get. The punchline escaping me. I didn't get it when my mom didn't respond to my texts. I didn't get it when she didn't answer my phone calls. I didn't get it the first couple hours my brother spent looking for her. I didn't get it until my wife sent me a video of you running over children in the parade. That's when I got the punchline. And it hit me like your red SUV, Mr. Brooks. I saw pure, unrepentant evil in your face that day, and it disgusts me that you are allowed to exist. And I know the answer to the question that everyone keeps asking. I know why you did this. You did this simply because you were not in a cage. That is what I find mind-boggling. And how dare anyone say the system failed him? The system failed every one of us whose only mistake was to bring their families in the vicinity of Mr. Brooks. That poor excuse for a man should not have been on the streets. That is the failure, period. But enough about him, because today is not about him. It's about us and what we lost. I lost my mom, Lee Owen, and I wasn't always a good son. I could be selfish sometimes. I could be mean.
Just keep it to himself.
But
Oh
no
my
matter how
God.
angry or standoffish
He can't
I
control
got,
himself.
she would bend over backwards for me, even when I didn't deserve it.
The camera turned off again?
And now I can never tell her I'm sorry. I can never tell
think
her
the
I should
display
have
just
been
turned
more
off.
grateful. I can never tell her how much I need her in my life. Yeah, shake your head. Shake your head. You know, because that is what you took from me. And there's nothing this court can do that would provide justice in my eyes. So all I ask is that you rot, and you rot slow.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff.
He just looks so tired of everything.
I mean, everybody's kind of tired of
Yeah.
all of his
If
bullshit.
you think about it, it's been a long time running.
You bring up a great point, which is these judges do this for their career, for their profession.
Yep.
This is not Judge Dorow's first sentencing hearing. It's not the first time she's had to deal with victim impact statements. It's not the first time she's been confronted with an evil defendant, such as Darrell Brooks. She understands, because she worked as a criminal defense attorney, what evil looks like, what true sorrow, empathy, remorse looks like. And she knows when someone's putting on a show. And you get really good at that, especially as a defense attorney, because you kind of get a feeling for when people are trying to put you on because they want you to believe whatever they want you to believe, and whether or not they're truly sorry, they just really want you to get their case dismissed because, you know, they got to move on with life. And I've dealt with some really bad ones, and everything that this guy did, from his mannerisms to the ways that he speaks. Listen to this exchange right after those two witnesses, those two victims came in and spoke. He raises an objection and he blows up at the judge. Oh, wait, this is the wrong video.
So do you think your bullshit radar, like,
Oh,
you just, you know.
You asked me how high it is? I would say it's from what's the scale?
Yeah, like from like 1 to 10, you know,
Let's say
you
1 to
probably
10.
couldn't sense.
12, 15 maybe. 20, call it 20.
Yeah, but that's years of experience, like he just said.
Of course.
The only way I will honor that request is if you specifically honor that request is view specifically.
So this is after she kicked him out of the courtroom because he was
your right to do so.
being an idiot.
Without that, that's not a convenience for you over there. It's you go over there when you frankly demand removal under Illinois versus Allen.
I didn't demand anything.
No, your conduct did. So you
My
can
conduct
sit.
didn't demand anything either.
What is he even
Right,
saying?
Mr. Brooks,
You
please
keep
sit
changing-
down.
You keep changing
And I'm
the
going to
jurisdiction.
I don't even know
continue
what
with
this
my
objection was
sentencing
about,
remarks.
but it
No,
was
I
an
just-
objection as to something.
Jurisdiction, it's a subject matter jurisdiction that has yet to be proven on the
He's
record.
still bringing that up.
Yeah.
Wow.
In that
Brooks?
court and in this one.
And he's
sit
in
down.
orange, so
I
it's
would
like
to
over.
go back to
It's
the
yeah,
other
it's
court.
It's
done.
not a
He's
courtesy
shackled.
to you. If you'd like to specifically waive your right to be physically present, then I will entertain that. Otherwise, you need to sit
I
down.
never waived the
don't
right
know how
to
she
not
did
be
it.
present.
That's
I
because
had
you
to-
forfeited your right
I
to be
didn't
present
forfeit
by
anything, Your
conduct.
Honor.
You're
I
now
wrote-
back in this courtroom.
Your Honor, I did what you asked me to do.
You never once pledged to me, sir, that
No.
you would not interrupt. And
You-
you're demonstrating by being here that you continue to interrupt.
Man, I ain't trying to hear all that because at the end of the day, I did what you asked me to do. You told
That's
me
the judge
you
that's gonna
told
be
the bailiff
administering the
to tell me-
Mr.
sentence.
Brooks, this is not a debate.
In a couple
You told
hours.
the bailiff to
It's
tell me
not
that
a
I had
debate.
to
You
write.
asked to come over here, and I honored that,
Well,
and
I
I brought you
exercised my
back.
right 3 times. I shouldn't have had to do it 3 times.
None of those opportunities that you wrote to me said, I pledge to not interrupt.
I never
Judge
had to do
Dorow."
that before. You've never required that before.
That is actually not true, sir.
You've never required that before. Every single time that I've
She
been brought
required
over
that every
there,
single time. You got a
after
pledge, you're
some
going to
time-
behave like a good little
sometimes-
boy.
He probably
Very
has such a
short.
different perspective of what went down
in the
during
period
this.
of time,
You are just simply trying to delay the
I'm-
inevitable. Please
Yeah.
sit
I
down.
don't care about the inevitable. It was
I need
already
to
written
get
from day
through
one
this
what was going to
hearing.
happen. That it doesn't make me lose any sleep about that. I know I'm okay. I'm okay with everything.
Then please
I just
sit
wanna
down.
I just want to be treated fairly, which I have
Please.
not been.
Please sit down.
And then Your Honor, and then you
Mr.
always make it seem
this is
like
not a
you always
debate.
make it seem like it's some type of aim, and it's not.
Please sit down.
We're talking about constitutional rights. You just told me, or you told the bailiff to tell
he
me
was a
that
sovereign
I had
citizen.
the right to exercise a right that I should already have. I did that. Not once, not twice, 3 times. And it still wasn't honored. And then I raised this sign. I'm
Mr.
waving
Brooks,
this for like 20 minutes
You're-
saying I would want to come back. I'm
You
doing
ran
this.
through
Hey,
people.
now.
Can I come back? Can I come back? Can
So
I come
sit
back?
down.
It wasn't honored. And then I
So I
said,
can
okay,
finish.
I'll write this and I'll see if Your Honor can see it on the screen. The objection sign saying,
Mr.
I've
Brooks,
exercised my right
if
to
you
be present.
stop for a
May I have the
minute,
order of the court?
I'll explain it, but you have to stop so
I'm
I
not-
can
what am
explain it.
Your Honor, I did what you asked me to.
What she asked him to do was to make a pledge that he was going to behave and be quiet and allow the proceedings to continue.
Well, obviously he's
And
not.
he just said what his objection was, I
Yeah.
want to exercise my right to go in there, which is not the same as a pledge.
No.
And I think she was I remember hearing her on record saying, oh, that's not a pledge. And so that's what this is all about.
To do.
Actually not.
Yes.
Let me explain
And
if
I
you would
didn't-
like.
If I didn't, Your Honor, if I did not do what you asked me to do, then why was I allowed to come back if I did not do what you asked me
Because
to
I'm frankly going to a very distinct portion of this hearing where I am going to impose sentence.
Okay, that doesn't
and
answer the
that
question, though, Your Honor.
matters.
do? That doesn't answer the question.
It's like talking
Please
to a
sit down
wall.
and I will
There's gonna be
explain
such a
and
satisfying
remain
end to
quiet
all of
without
this.
interrupting
Yeah.
me.
With all due respect,
That doesn't mean you're respecting me, so please sit
with
down.
all due respect, you told the bailiff
She's completely
when I
right.
first said, because every time that I've been brought over there in the past,
Mr. Brooks,
you always stated
I don't need a history
you always
lesson of
stated
what I've done.
that when I exercise my right to be present,
Untrue.
you've
Untrue.
always said, we
Untrue.
have the record. We have the record.
It's like you can't
We can
communicate
dig
with this
into the
guy.
record.
Mr. Brooks,
Like no matter
I
what
know
you say.
I know what the requirement was.
He goes on. I mean, I don't have to subject you guys to all of this. It ends with him. Let's see.
Brooks.
What's he doing now?
Your Honor, as a public
Brooks.
servant, I have the right to ask
Jesus.
questions.
Sir.
He
of
won't
Your
stop,
Honor.
right?
I'm going to ask you one more time, and if you refuse to sit down, then you are in direct disobedience of a court order. Sit
That-
down and be quiet so I can make the appropriate record.
Can you tell me what the
All
court
right,
order
he's
is?
not going to obey. He's now
I
forfeited
didn't
his
say
right
I
to be
wasn't gonna
present.
obey.
He will go into the
I
other
didn't say I
courtroom.
wasn't going to obey.
We'll
I
be in
just
recess
asked what is the
until he's
order.
there.
God,
Oh
man.
my God.
You guys gives me a headache.
I couldn't quite see her abdomen, but I don't know where we read in the past that I think she did this entire trial when she was pregnant. That woman,
Yeah, which by the way, I know I read this somewhere. I'm not sure. I haven't confirmed if she's actually pregnant, but I thought I read somewhere that she was during the trial, which means obviously she's still pregnant now.
Which is crazy. That is.
But pregnant or not, Jesus,
That
put
patience.
up with that guy.
Yeah, you're talking to a wall. You really are, because no matter what he says, it just doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter.
It's like
So
talking to a wall.
when he got a chance to speak, so this was during the impact statements. Now he has a chance to offer mitigating circumstances to why the judge should impose the harshest of penalties, and this is where he finally apologizes to the victims. This is what he had to say.
Each and every victim in this incident, family members, those who lost loved ones, those who are still healing. I want you to know that no matter how you felt during this year, no matter how you felt yesterday, I want everyone to know, also the community of Waukesha, I want you to know that not only am I sorry for what happened, I'm sorry that you could not see what's truly in my heart, that you cannot see.
Right here, this was the one time where I think you could see the judge kind of leaning in her chair. She was looking for this. This is specifically what she wanted to see. He starts to say it, what's really in my heart. And then he proceeds to say what's really in his heart. And then it was this.
The remorse that I have, that you cannot listen to all the phone calls that I've made to my family, that you cannot hear all the prayers that I've said in my cell, that you cannot count all the tears that I've dropped in this year.
What's your bullshit meter at?
I mean, it's been off the charts from the beginning, but
a lot of times.
You're not sorry. You're sorry to get caught.
I'm not very old by age standards, but I've been alive long enough to understand that a lot of people are comfortable with hearing what they want to hear, being told what they want to be told.
So that was the extent of the apology. Apology's over. And now he goes on another 2 hours of rambling. And what it was his mom actually came in to try to speak for him. His grandmother also came in to speak for him. His mom was, she made a statement about the perils of mental illness. I guess that he was diagnosed as bipolar earlier in life, and that, we should look, not forgive him completely for what he did, but let's not just throw him away and have some compassion for those that are mentally ill. And his grandmother, who I guess is an ordained minister, she claimed to have been for 46, 47 years or something like that, got in to say something similar. And
something about the mothers of sons who commit like heinous acts just doesn't ever sit right with me, what they say. Like Ted Bundy's mom, I think, still doesn't believe that he committed those atrocities.
Well, being a parent, if one of my children did something like that, I couldn't. Did you see the interview with the guy that murdered his wife and threw his children in the oil tankers?
I think so, yeah.
What was his name? I forget that guy's
I know
name.
who you're talking about.
Yeah. He was being interrogated by the police, and then he goes on to, you know what? I got to find his name. I can't. It's going to bother me.
Girls, I hope this is a red flag that if you ever have a man doing something wrong and then having his mom excuse him for him, drop that.
It's not like him. He's different.
He's gonna change. Trust him. No.
It gives me a weird feeling.
Run for your life.
Yeah. Every time their mothers get involved, I'm like, this
Chris
is
Watts.
strange.
Christopher Watts.
Yes, Christopher Watts.
Okay, so Christopher Watts, during his interrogation, they interrogated him for a while, and they got to the point where he had failed his tests, his
lie detector
test, and they brought in his father to talk to him at his request. And this is, dad, and he's looking at his son who is now has now confessed to a murder.
Yeah.
What Christopher Watts tried to tell him was a line of bullshit, which is, I did it because she killed the kids, and so I didn't know what to do, so I freaked out and I strangled her. That's what he tried to start saying, And so his dad is sitting there, and this is his little boy, and his dad looked probably approaching 60, What do you do when your child does something like that? How are you supposed to act? What are you supposed to say? What are you supposed to think? Because they've done this. There's no going back on it. And you see him almost in a state of disbelief at hearing that his son tell him that he just killed his wife. And the realization of that, your grandchildren are dead, your daughter-in-law is dead, and your son did it, even though his son is trying to say that his wife is the one that killed the children. He knew that was all bullshit. I feel like he did. And then you saw him at the sentencing hearing. And if my child would have done something like that, you raise this child from birth, you see them go to school, you grow up and you see them at their absolute best.
Do you think it's like a coping mechanism in a way?
To do what?
To sort of believe the unbelievable in the term of like, maybe he didn't do it. Maybe his wife did kill those kids.
I don't think that Darrell Brooks' mom, she didn't say that he didn't do it.
No.
Yeah. For his dad, I'm not sure what coping mechanism he had. It's almost like you did this.
Yeah.
It's almost like that movie Goodfellas. You guys ever saw that movie Goodfellas? Okay, so there's a scene where Ray Liotta, he goes to Paul Giamatti, and he just betrayed him. He's like selling drugs on the backside, and he has to admit that he did this horrible thing. And then Paul Giamatti looks at him. He's like this father figure to him, and he looks at him, and he says, "All right, look," because he's asking him for money, right? He says, "All right, here's $1,000," and then he gives it to him. He gives him this look, but now I've got to turn my back on you. And that he does. And then he goes on. It's a different context, I know, but it's kind of similar.
You think it's like good representation for what parents feel like when their children commit?
I can only speak off my personal experience. Yeah. From my personal experience, when one of my close family members was convicted of a very heinous crime, and we're going to get into a little bit of that later on in the show, but when it happened to me, it's a very numbing feeling.
Yeah.
Because in the one time it's your family member, it's your parent, it's your son, it's your daughter, it's whoever, and they've been convicted of something that you thought only monsters could do.
Yeah.
How do you think you would react, for example, if, say, you found out your father had done some terrible thing?
It's hard, thing. Yeah,
because it's your dad. He raised you from birth, and he told you bedtime stories, and he made you, bacon and eggs in the morning, and fluffy pancakes, and skiing trips,
it's just
or
so
whatever.
Hard to imagine, I guess.
Yeah,
until you're faced with it,
I remember being in the courtroom and having to give one of these mitigating statements during a sentencing. And the judge hearing me, but then him very poignantly pointing to the defendant and saying that, listen, I heard your family and the very powerful statements of your family. And you know what? You got to own up to what you did.
Yeah. Because
they're over here but you're over here, you're giving them a line of bullshit. You did this. And they're over here defending you. But the reality is that you did this. Psychologically, it's very difficult to cross into that realm and accept that this person, your loved one, whom is one of the foundations of who you are as a person, did such a terrible thing. There's a self-reflection there. There is a detachment there. And, there is a feeling like you're just kind of lost. And so his mom, that's still her baby.
Yeah.
Regardless of what we think of him, regardless of what the victim's families think of him, that's still her son. And she has all of the memories that none of us could ever have, raising him from birth and whatever they went through in childhood and all their, the good times and the bad. but there were certainly the good times, and she has all of those in her heart, and she's trying to find a way to reconcile all of those things with this terrible thing that he did. And to her, in her defense, she didn't say anything out of line.
No, of course
She
not.
just simply said that, he was a good boy. He did a very terrible thing, mental illness, and she did all the things, the Clarence Darrell stuff that we talked about earlier, which is what you're supposed to do. You can't, I don't blame her for doing that.
Yeah.
I have just a very different perspective, having gone through it personally and having represented defendants myself. I never blame the families because they're going through something that you just
Can't imagine. Wouldn't.
It's hard to comprehend.
Yeah.
Unless you're in that position.
Can't understand.
Like we look at this guy in YouTube videos and we could say, X, Y, or Z about him, because we're objective. Did the camera go on?
Oh yeah, it's dead.
Well, we only have one camera for the rest of the show, and there's nothing we can do about it. This is how it is today. But I forgot where I left off. What was I talking about?
How we see him with a different perspective than his mom will.
We see these people, and from a distance, but living with them is different.
Yeah.
When it affects, the foundational tenets of who you are as a person, I can't blame somebody for how they react, and who the F am I to decide how somebody should react. So I give them a great deal of leeway for what they should do. Darrell Brooks, he did what he did. He got his just deserved punishment, and, we could behave and think and say whatever we want about him. But his mom, his grandmother, they're not victims in the same way as the families.
No, they're not.
But they are a victim in the sense that they had, like Judge Dorow said, she said that my heart breaks for your mom.
Yeah.
For your grandmother, because
they're in that position.
They had all of these great dreams of what you could become, and none of those things are going to happen. Nope. You are what you are, and you are where you belong. Matter of fact, I think we should watch some of the video of the sentencing. When she had finally administers, there was actually an applause. But here it goes.
This is a case that falls squarely on the need to protect the community. I referenced this earlier. There's really 3 primary reasons for the sentences I will impose here today. One is punishment, one is to protect the community, and the other is to provide justice and closure to the victims. Because under that category of need to protect, the court does get to consider the impact of these crimes on the victims. I went through at length in reviewing all of those victim impact statements. I certainly didn't go through every single one, just highlighting some of them, but doing so with purpose, because it is very clear to this court that Mr. Brooks has caused carnage, mayhem. It has resulted in many people suffering from PTSD, from mental and emotional trauma that will take a lifetime to recover from, and for some, perhaps, if at all. You have taken away from these individuals future memories. They will never have birthdays. You are behind bars, 79-year-old. Frankly, Mr. Brooks, no one is safe from.
So it's just
the
her.
actions
Oh,
of
never mind.
Darrell Brooks.
He's in the other courtroom right
Demand
now.
Oh, that's what it is.
The community is not safe.
I think this is the
from
clip
your
I saw
violent
when he started
internal
like fanning
conduct
himself with the
unless you are in
paper.
Custody. You left a path of destruction, chaos, death, injury, confusion, and panic as you drove 7 or so blocks through the Christmas parade, never once stopping or seemingly caring about the wake of carnage that you left. 4 of those blocks were turned into a scene that frankly is no different than a war zone.
So that was the sentencing. And, it goes on for that for another. She has to go through all 76 counts. There wasn't any further applause because she asked for them not to applaud. But in some, he got over 1,000 years, 6 consecutive life sentences. If he were to do just not counting the life sentences, just on the enhancers that she was just talking about on the other charges, he would have to serve at least 500 years.
Oh my God.
To be eligible for parole, which he's not eligible for anyway, right? So, yeah, she buried him under the prison. And just, for the simple satisfaction of it, this was him earlier today.
What do you think the minimum sentence would have been if he was represented?
Oh, yeah, the minimum sentence is simple. It would have been a concurrent sentence, a life sentence of... basically would have been a life sentence where he would have been eligible for, as they say, extended supervision, basically means parole, after 20 years.
20 years.
So he could have got out at 60.
Wow.
Been on parole for however long that it would be in Wisconsin. That would have been best case scenario for him.
Best case scenario.
Not a chance with the way that he was.
No.
But this was him earlier today. This is for the pre-hearing for his domestic violence case against his ex.
Oh.
Look at him in a wheelchair.
Why is he?
In.
Oh, he's strapped.
So I hadn't heard about that far in advance.
In this case, he has an attorney.
Oh.
He didn't want to represent himself in this case.
It's because he got a taste of what it means.
Yeah.
Johnson versus Darrell Brooks Jr., case 20 CF 2550, also calling 21 CF.
And that will
Is that a
will be in
wheelchair?
trial.
Yes.
Probably in a couple of months on that case. So with that, I think we should close the book.
Yes.
On Mr. Darrell Brooks, and I don't ever have to talk about him ever again, unless somebody wants to, in which case I will. But for all intents and purposes, Mr. Brooks, he's done.
Forever.
Yeah, he's where he belongs. And for all of the victims in that case, all the prayers in the world going out to them. And, to Darrell Brooks' family as well. Specifically his mother and his grandma, who are elderly and, dealing with a new reality of what happened, what became of their grandson. Let's talk a little bit about Sarah Boone, the suitcase killer.
Oh, yes.
So, all right, Sarah Boone is not the sharpest tool.
No.
To be fair, neither was her victim in this case. So the story goes, let me just paint a little picture. Back in July 2018, Sarah Boone is charged with battery by strangulation. She tried to strangle the victim that she killed in the suitcase. Well, okay. I say that she killed allegedly, right? Mm-hmm. The court documents show that she told investigators that she was dragged upstairs by the guy's name was Torres and kicked in the right eye after talking to a guy at the bar. Torres at the time told investigators she tried to strangle him and that if he did not kick her off of him, she would have made him incapacitated. In the affidavit, deputies say they weren't able to tell who the primary aggressor was, so they were fighting with each other.
Okay, they're both.
Typical stuff that we all see here in this office all the time, right? Torres, after this incident in 2018, he was charged 3 times in 2019. He was arrested in 2019, where Sarah Boone accused him of punching her in the left ear. There was a restraining order taken off. So, I mean...
They were both in a very volatile relationship.
Multiple incidents, right? So they had something was going to happen with these two.
Yeah.
Whether it was he killed her or she killed him or significantly injured the other. Something bad was going to come of this relationship. But yet they were together. And
that's how life goes sometimes.
Mr. Torres, I believe, was she called him an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. She described to investigators about how he was out of control alcoholic. When he would drink alcohol, he would do unsavory things. I believe that she is also a recovering addict, if I think I read that correctly, that she has some substance abuse issues herself, but they're together. And then she was trying to rehabilitate him or try to get him or try to change him, you know, but they're in the midst of this domestic violence riddled relationship. So one night, you know, they got to drinking a bottle of wine. You know, I don't know if it was a red or a white. It doesn't really matter. I'd imagine it was a, you know, $7 Stater's Brothers run of the mill generic blend, a red blend. Let's call it a red blend.
The easiest way to get drunk.
Yeah. So
No
you know,
offense to Stater.
they were, you know, having a bottle of wine and putting on the music and getting in the mood to play hide and seek, where Mr. Torres unceremoniously decided to climb into a suitcase and where Sarah Boone presumably locked him in. And in the course of doing that,
The claustrophobia you must feel inside.
why would you climb into a suitcase?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
I mean, I get scared when I'm in like a closet and the door is closed. I can't imagine a suitcase.
An elevator.
In an elevator, yeah. I'm like, ooh, this is uncomfortable.
Oh, I wanted to see if they had the video.
It probably wouldn't be on YouTube. If
No,
they
I don't
did.
think it's going to be on YouTube.
YouTube would probably flag it and take it down.
Oh, no. It was on. It was on. Yeah, this is the video. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So before I play this, yeah, this is the clip. Okay. So he climbs into a suitcase. She zips him up and decides not to let him out. And so they're playing, and it's like, it gets to the point where it's like, he's not playing anymore. It's like, okay, Sarah, I can't breathe. Let me out. And she's like, F you. I'm not letting you out. Well, what I think happened is she had a little more than a bottle of wine that she said. She was probably intoxicated.
She blasted, yeah.
She was probably 0.15 or above. And she didn't remember taking this video of her taunting Mr. Torres while in the suitcase. So she's being interrogated by the police. Anyway, to paint the picture, she locks him up in the suitcase. The next morning, she decides to go to bed.
She falls asleep, forgets about him.
Yep. Forgets about him.
Yeah.
11 hours later or something like that, she wakes up in the morning. Oh, shit, I left him in the suitcase. Opens the suitcase, and the guy is dead. And so, not knowing what to do, she contacts law enforcement. They go and they interrogate her, and she's freaking out. And she gives them, here, look through my cell phone. I don't know. I have nothing to hide. Forgetting that she took the following video.
Oh, my God.
That is the suitcase. Mr. Torres is in there right now.
For everything you've done to me. Sarah. For everything you've done to me.
Oh, she is slurring her words.
Fuck you.
She flipped over the suitcase, and so the opening is, he's on it, so it's impossible for him to get out anyway.
Sarah. That's my name. Don't wear it up.
She sounds so drunk anyway.
She sounds gone.
Sarah, I can't fucking breathe, babe. Seriously. Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me. Sarah. Sarah. Sarah.
So she's taking this video super intoxicated.
She forgot she recorded it. She must have.
Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
Why would you record something like that?
No, I don't
Sarah, I
know.
can't breathe. It's on you. Sarah. Real or ransom. Might want to get video.
What
for
is he
it
even
extra.
saying?
She's so far gone. You can hear she's totally plastered in that video.
Sarah. Real or ransom. Sarah.
So I'm assuming he's drunk as well.
I assume, but he also can't breathe. And he's like,
Yeah.
hey, Sarah.
Yeah.
He's probably sobering up right now, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh. That's what I feel like when you ching on me. Sarah. Fuck you. Breathe, Sarah. Yeah. You should probably shut the fuck up.
My God.
This sounds like a South Park episode. Not to make light of it, but I mean, Jesus Christ with this
It
one.
doesn't sound real. It doesn't sound real.
No, and so she's interrogated by the police. And then, you know, they're like, hey.
Okay,
yeah,
I saw that one.
Yeah. This was the entire interrogation video, but this is where they're confronting her with the footage of.
So she didn't remember she took the footage.
Well, she doesn't admit to that. She didn't say that in the interrogation, but I suspect that she forgot. Do I think that she intended to kill that guy? No, I don't. I think she.
You think it was an accident?
You heard how drunk she was.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think she had intent either.
Well, that begs the question. So she wasn't charged with first-degree murder. She's being charged with second-degree murder. So there's different.
Yeah.
In the most generic of terms, you know, when you're in law school, they teach you what first-degree murder is. You know, a murder with malice aforethought, meaning you planned and schemed to murder somebody. Second-degree murder is you didn't plan or scheme, but you found the opportunity and you decided to intend to kill this person.
Okay.
Right? There's another crime, which would be a lesser included of second-degree murder, which would be a negligent homicide, which is I didn't mean to kill him. I didn't plan to kill him. And she says a million times in this interrogation, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't intentional over and over and over again, which is suggest I really didn't think he was going to die, but I just didn't let him out of the suitcase. And they're like, well, what did you think was going to happen? Well, I didn't think he was going to die. That's a negligent homicide where by your stupidity, you killed a person.
You killed a person.
Yeah, it's still murder, but it's not necessarily second degree. Some might call it third degree
Where
murder.
does manslaughter fall into this?
Manslaughter is manslaughter. It's basically the same, but there's first degree, there's second degree manslaughter.
Okay,
when you think of manslaughter, just think of murder.
Okay.
And so in this case, she's being charged with second degree. My prediction for this case, if I was her defense attorney, is my client is not the sharpest, you know? I mean, she had no intention. I mean, she speaks in her interrogation videos of trying to help and rehabilitate him. And, you know, they had a relationship and it was a quirky relationship to say the least. But did she intend? Did she think by stuffing him in a suitcase that he was going to die? No, I don't think she did. Is she the brightest? No, she's not the brightest. Is she guilty of causing his death? 100%.
Absolutely.
But did she ever form the intent to purposely kill him? No, I just think she's an idiot.
She was just
That's
dumb
exactly
and drunk.
That should be the defense. That is her defense. If she gets charged with second degree, I believe that she still technically could face a life sentence in that case. My prediction for this trial, and it's probably a couple of months out, is that she's going to end up something with involuntary manslaughter, some kind of negligent homicide. Who knows? But we're going to be diving into that case when the trial comes about for the, you know, a lot of people are interested in it.
And the way he died is just very traumatic.
Who plays hide and seek?
No, yeah.
I wonder if they're really actually playing hide and seek.
I don't know.
Or if
it was just somebody's idea, like, hey, see if you can fit in that suitcase.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so bizarre sounding.
Yeah.
By the way, we've been going for an hour and 9 minutes. So I think we need to discuss the situation that came up with one of our loyal listeners. They wanted me to speak about the subject that she finds her son in. She's a mother. I believe she's from Wichita, Kansas. And her son found himself in a situation, and this is what she said to us. Her son pled to a charge of aggravated sexual battery of a minor with exploitation of a minor. He was charged along with his best friend at the time. My son was 18 at the time, and this girl was 17. Her son's friend recorded her son under the covers with this girl and posted it on Snapchat.
Oof, that doesn't sound good.
This girl had a foursome with her son's friend and 3 of his friends only 2 days prior before my son met her. She also had claimed that the father of her baby raped her as well. Her rape kit came back positive for meth, as well as other drugs and alcohol. This girl was told not to come over by her friend that night. The night that this happened, she and her friend showed up anyway. They brought vodka and dab pens and shared with everyone at the house. The boys did not give these girls any alcohol or drugs. She said she was too messed up to give consent. David, we actually had a case that we've talked about on this show before exactly like this. David did realize this, and he immediately stopped, but unfortunately the recording had already been done by his friend. The boys literally had to kick these girls out the next morning. I believe if his friend had not recorded and posted the encounter on social media, she would never have made any accusations. I fully agree with her on being upset. This is repulsive on her son's friend's part. My son had nothing to do with that. As far as I'm concerned, my son is as much of a victim. None of her actions that night could be brought up in court because there's a law that rape victims' past cannot be looked at. That's sort of true, not altogether true. That's a lot if this in a nut. Oh, I guess that's
it.
Typo. You have the outline. So, okay, that is the hypothetical. So,
okay.
My opinions. She brought, number one, this case involves a minor.
Yes.
She can't legally consent anyway. Number two, there's narcotics involved, which brings up a different kind of charge of this aggravated sexual assault or battery by means of intoxication. And I have no idea about any of the other facts in that case, but there's multiple issues that would have had to been dealt with at trial. I think that her question really stems from, had it simply not been posted, this would have all got swept under the rug. She wouldn't have really cared. People probably called her out on it, and she had to defend herself to people that saw it, her friends, family, who knows who even is on Snapchat. But to her point that there's a law that you can't use a victim's past against her, that's not exactly true. Matter of fact, if she made false rape allegations against the father of her child in the past, that's highly relevant and would have come out at trial in a case such as this, where part of the defense would be that she's making false allegations against the defendant in this case. It would have been relevant to suggest, not for her sexual past, but that she's made these allegations in the past that were found not to be true. Now, I don't know to the extent, because all we got was literally what I read you in the hypothetical, but let's just assume, for hypothetical sake, that there were charges brought against a young man that happens to be the father of her child for sexual assault, and the case was dismissed upon a finding that the story that she told was not credible. That evidence is coming in. We're bringing in the cops that did the investigation, that did the interview. We're bringing in evidence of that rape kit to show that there was no evidence or lack of physical evidence thereof. But we're bringing it in because she has a tendency to make up these kinds of things. The thing about bringing up a victim's past is you're not allowed to say that, oh, she's a whore. She slept with 1,000 people before, so obviously she was consenting this time. That's not a viable defense. You're not allowed to say that. We take this on a case, by the way, that used to be a thing way back in the day. There's a whole body of law involving sexual assault where that was the main defense used against young ladies bringing those claims. I didn't consent. He raped me. No, she's a whore. She's done it. She did it with me. She did it with my brother. She did it with my cousin. She did it with her friends. And, that was the main defense back in the day. It used to be the case around the nation that you could not legally rape your spouse.
Yes.
I think it's still the case in certain jurisdictions.
States, I think you're right. In some cases, in some states, it is still the case but in California, it's certainly not the case. You're allowed to be sexually assaulted, or you can claim a sexual assault of your spouse, and it happens more often than you'd believe. But yeah, that's what she's talking about as far as the past of a victim can't be used against them. What do you guys think from your non-attorney perspective?
Well, again, I'm not an attorney. I don't have any experience.
Disclaimer, everybody.
Disclaimer. Okay, so if I don't sound knowledgeable, it's because I'm not. But the first thing that came to my head when I heard of the situation was that she was 17. I'm like, that seems like a bad thing. And then the second thing was the recording, which was posted on social media, which seems super bad considering that she's underage. But that's kind of what I first imagined and pictured to be the most important part of this.
Oh, yeah. So ignore the underage part of it. Let's talk specifically about false allegations of rape.
Okay. So it's her claiming she was raped by somebody, right?
Well, here's the scenario. And you know what? I wanted to bring on a licensed psychologist to talk about this very issue. And she talked to me about it, and I got her perspective from it. And then she basically stated that, you know, there's two different types of false allegations. One is false memories, you know, to deal with some kind of traumatic incident that happened in the past. You're making up these memories to try to deal with, you know, missing links or why bad things happen or whatnot. And then they're just simply, you feel guilt or shame. And so you deflect that in your own internal self and just say that, oh, I did it against my will. It wasn't me. It wasn't my actions. I was forced to do this thing. And victims that take that approach, oftentimes they don't start out, you know, in the moment, they're consenting. But if they form a different opinion because of the ridicule that they're experiencing because of the experience, then they adopt that, oh no, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to say no, but I didn't feel like I could because I was so intimidated, you know, he's a big guy or whatever. And then they might not even believe that in the moment, but over time that thought takes hold and they truly do believe that that's what happened, that they were raped. So she didn't want to come on the show because she's still a practicing psychologist and she runs a very successful business where she didn't want people coming to her thinking that, you know, they're not safe to say, you know, bring up allegations of rape to her, which is fair. But what do you girls think about this situation? Okay, so you guys have friends and they are caught up in a sexual incident that they're not proud of. Do you guys have any experience with false allegations of sexual assault?
Yes, unfortunately.
Explain.
I can't say names.
Well,
I'm going to keep people's identity confidential in this matter, but unfortunately, yes. But I went to a party, I remember, it was last year, and this girl got so heavily wasted. But when I say wasted, she was speaking gibberish. So, point it out. Around 11 or 12, well, yeah, she was wasted. And then she was like leaning onto this guy that was like not touching her, not kissing her. They were not dating. They were not partners. They were not friends. Like she just like had a thing for him. I don't know. Like fast forward to like maybe midnight or 11 p.m. She's like, I'm going to change into my PJs. And then she pops into the bathroom and comes out wearing only a t-shirt and her pretty little butt cheeks were like flaunted around. Everybody saw her. This is on camera, which is like the worst part of it. She jumps on top of this guy and he's like, please, like step away, let me go. And she's just like kissing him and laughing and stuff like that. The music was loud. We were all like laughing around it. Like he didn't even make a big deal of it. He's like, I know she's drunk. It's fine. Fast forward. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go to bed. He was spending the night at the house where we were at. I'm going to go to bed. He goes into a room and the camera follows him. And then it follows the girl that goes directly behind him. That's where we don't see anything else. And what he claims happened after that is like he was sleeping and she jumped on top of him and started touching him. And he touched her breast and he touched her butt cheeks. But that was it. That's all that happened. And then they went to sleep and then she went out of the room.
So then she started claiming?
She claims that happened because I remember the next day she said she remembers that happened, but that she was too drunk to do something about it.
Okay.
3 days later, she started saying that he sexually abused her. Everybody was like,
and
wait.
That's how easily somebody could catch a case.
So is it like false memories because of her drinking?
Is it false memories or is it because she just made a fool of herself in front of all of these people?
Yeah. Exactly. So that's what everybody thought. Everybody who had a chance to speak with her were like, hey, we were there. We all saw you. No. I was drunk. Automatically, if somebody is drunk, wasted, if you touch me or if you're like on top of somebody that's drunk or even you permit to put a hand on, that's assault. That's abuse. So everybody was like.
And in the meantime, this young man is at threat of catching a rape charge, a sexual assault charge that would have the result. I mean, did this happen in America or Colombia?
No, it happened here.
What happened here? So he's facing a case over here now because this young lady is ashamed of her actions. Luckily, there was a lot of witnesses in that case that would be able to testify. And, I see, when I first became an attorney, one of the most heinous crimes I believed you could commit was one of sexual assault, forcing a lady of any age to commit sexual acts that she didn't want to commit. And, much worse, to do it through means of violence, right? But the more I can't, because I started in criminal law, that used to be exclusively what I would do. I cannot tell you the amount of fishy cases that I would get about these sexual assaults that didn't look much like sexual assaults. They were much more often what you would describe. People messing around at a party, people drinking a little bit too much, feeling a little ashamed. I mean, I think everybody has had that moment where they are so intoxicated and they do a lot of stupid things. Yep. And you wake up, it's like, what in the hell did I just do? Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Now you throw sex into it and, that's where you get false claims of sexual assaults. And too often it's in those situations involving alcohol, and it could occur in a couple of different ways. Either I was forcibly sexually assaulted, or I had no ability to consent because I was too drunk, even though I was throwing myself on top of the guy. And the standard in most of those cases, especially in these intoxication cases, is would a reasonable person have understood that this person was too intoxicated to give consent to engage in sexual activity? And if the answer is yes or no, then the question becomes, well, how intoxicated was he? Because it's a party. Everybody's drinking, So his judgment might be compromised. And now it's a question of, okay, so she's throwing himself on top of him and he's kind of halfway there. He's intoxicated himself. Could he even give consent?
Yeah.
We've had those cases before. So it's sexual assault cases are not as simple as you might want to believe. There's always the easy cases, and the easy cases are somebody beats the shit out of some girl or some guy, and they forcibly rape them, and there's injuries, and it's obvious, right? But there is this gray line where we have, the Me Too movement was a huge thing as of recent, and you got people accusing Morgan Freeman of sexual misconduct on the set of a movie. And I got to find that video. Matter of fact, I'm going to find that video.
Who else was that prominent figure? Harvey? Was that one?
Harvey Weinstein? Oh,
Harvey Weinstein.
No, that guy was a creep. He was justifiably accused and convicted of, what he did to people on his casting couch.
There were numerous.
I got to show you this one.
Not only that, he was linked to.
But get a load of this video from CNN. This is from 4 years ago. This is at the height of the Me Too movement, where women felt empowered to start bringing up stories of what they believe was sexual assault allegations. Let's get a load of this.
Uncovered a pattern of alleged inappropriate behavior by legendary actor Morgan Freeman, both on set and at his production company. Revelations Entertainment, that's what his production company is called. Joining me now, CNN's Chloe Malas and Ann Fung. They broke the story.
He made me up and down.
This is the lady on the right. This is the lady that is making the accusation. They're going to play a video clip of what she is calling sexual allegation against the legendary Morgan Freeman.
6 months pregnant at the time, and his co-stars Alan Arkin and Michael Caine were seated on either side of him and actually looked at him when he made this comment to me. Again, it was caught on tape, and take a note of Freeman's eyes in this clip.
One time I congratulated the woman on being pregnant, and she wasn't. And so I've never done it again. For 50 years, I've never done it.
You've learned your lesson.
I learned my lesson.
Boy, do I wish I was there.
This movie is, as you see, that was quick right there, but there were other comments made to me by Freeman before.
You know what? I feel like she's looking at the video for the first time, and she's like, "Hey, that's not as bad as what I just said." And so she's saying it really cool, but there was other comments that he made that were not of it, which I'm so sure. But I don't even think he's referencing her in that comment.
Not.
Let's play it again.
He's referencing to what Michael Caine said.
Michael Caine is telling a story. He said, man, I wish I was there. He ain't even talking about her.
Take a note of Freeman's eyes in this clip.
I'm looking in his eyes.
One time I congratulated the woman on being pregnant and she wasn't. And so I've never done it again. For 50 years, I've never done it.
You've learned your lesson.
I learned my lesson.
Lord, do I wish I was there.
This movie is... As you see, that was quick right there, but there were other comments made to me by Freeman before.
No, I don't see.
That just
I don't see.
pisses me
I don't
off
see.
because it puts such a bad.
I'm going to
rep.
get canceled by this, and I don't care. But honestly, I believe the Me Too movement has been like dragged out of what it really is about.
Destructive. It's been destructive in that it's empowered a lot of false stories about, and honestly, it's done a disservice to women that are genuinely victims
to like
of
the
sexual
original
assault.
movement.
Let's just point out that one of the faces of the Me Too movement is no other than Amber Heard. Let's just take that out of the picture.
I mean, I don't got time to get into Amber Heard right now.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that one. All I'm going to say is this, Morgan Freeman, legendary actor, legendary voice, has built up a whole legacy of, being this person, being Morgan Freeman. And here comes this reporter saying, as she's asking a question on camera, that he was looking me up and down and he made an unsavory comment. We get it on video and we're looking at it and like, what happened? What did I miss?
It just makes everything else look bad. Like it makes the whole movement seem not serious, That's the thing. Yeah.
Getting back to our listener, who spurred this discussion about this hypothetical. If I was the defense attorney in her son's case, I would not have taken a plea deal on that charge. If it went down the way that she said, and I've said many times that oftentimes we believe that the facts are different than when they actually are. So if all I'm doing is taking her story as, the absolute truth and it was exactly how she said, I would have taken that case to trial. The problem is I don't know what the DA had in evidence. I didn't see the video, obviously. I don't, know what they were going off of. I don't know what the statements of the young lady was. I don't know if they found DNA on her from the young man. I have no idea. But based on what she said, I take that case to trial and I try to spare my client from getting a charge of sexual assault on the belief that he didn't actually commit an act of sexual assault. They were under the covers. I don't know what was going on under the covers, but it was broadcast on Snapchat. I don't know. They charged him with something. He pled to it based on what he was told. I'm assuming he must have had public defenders. He probably had some discussions with his attorneys, but before one of my clients pleads to a sexual assault, and you know what? I had a case almost exactly the exact fact pattern as what our listener had. The only difference was there were no friends involved. This was a young lady that was drunk at a party. She goes home with this young man, and they engage in sexual conduct. He drops her off at a gas station for whatever reason. And a couple of hours later, she's confronted by her sister. And then all of a sudden, what was, in my client's eyes, a consensual sexual act turns into a sexual assault. And he's arrested the next day at his parents' house. And, so begins the whole case. Come to find out in that case that there was a lot of extenuating evidence that I did not have access to at the time. And as the evidence started to come out, the case that the DA was building was stronger and stronger. Mm-hmm. And he ended up taking a plea deal on those very charges that would allow, well, he's probably out of prison now, but I think he ended up pleading to a couple of years. So these cases are difficult, and oftentimes if you're the family member of somebody accused of such a thing, you are not going to be privy to all of the things that the attorneys know. Yeah. And you're not going to be privy to all of those things unless the case actually goes to trial. And I've dealt specifically with sexual assault cases in my family before. And I was, privy to a lot of the stuff because of the investigation that I was involved in, being part of the defense team. But if you're going to take that thing to trial, all of those things are going to come out. And oftentimes people take plea deals because they don't want the sensitive details to come out to spare the embarrassment to the families of not only the victim, but more specifically, the families of the defendants. So it's tough. It's tough. There is a world out there that fosters these false allegations of sexual assault. But there is a very more real world out there where there are genuine cases of sexual assault that occur on a daily basis.
It's a very fine line, I feel.
Imagine, you guys are not attorneys, but I'm going to put you in a prosecutor's shoe. the prosecutor's shoes. So this young lady, Melissa, that you just described at that party, they come to you and they tell you that they were sexually assaulted. You're hired to represent and protect the people of the state of California, right? What do you tell this young lady upon the story that she was sexually assaulted at a party and that she was being fed alcohol and she was too intoxicated to consent and people were taking advantage of her? And not only is it her coming into her, she's probably coming into there with, into your office with her sister, her mom, her grandmother, her dad. And all of these people are looking to you to deliver them justice as if this really happened to her and you were not there at the party. What do you tell her? How do you represent her?
First thing I would ask her is, do you have any proof of what you're claiming? That would be the first thing I would ask her.
Yeah. And you would just assume, right? You have any of the proof and assume that what she's going to tell you is, of course I have proof. There was witnesses there, right? Maybe there's video, maybe there's not, but let's assume there's no video. Let's assume that her friends are going to come in and tell you, oh yeah, I definitely saw all of the things that they're saying. And they're going to back her up because that's her friend. And now this young man is also going to have his own witnesses and they're going to give a conflicting account. That's not what happened at all. She was doing all this other stuff, right? As the prosecutor, how do you handle that? You're not going to have smoking gun evidence. You're not going to have video footage showing exactly what happened that night. You're going to have her story and you're going to have the defendant's story. Your job is to take that case to trial and to try it as if what she is saying is true. The job of the defense attorney is to take that to trial and prove that the opposite is true. Good versus evil, right? Both sides believe that they're good. How do you handle that? How do you take on that case knowing that if you win and you're a good enough attorney, that this young man is going to go to prison and be labeled a sex offender for the rest of his life, even though he may not have actually done it? There's always that possibility. How do you handle it?
It's harder to actually give a general perspective due to the fact that I know both of them, but let's point out that I don't. Let's just be in that perspective for now.
Run with the hypothetical.
First thing I would do, of course, I would ask for the name of the person, birth date, and me as a DA would run like a background check of this person.
Yeah, but
that would be the first thing I would do.
Let's assume that all the discovery is done, right? You cannot disprove what she's saying. It's not your job to disprove what she's saying.
No.
You cannot, you feel like you could maybe prove what she's saying beyond a reasonable doubt, but there's a chance that what she's saying may not be true. Nobody's going to give you the answer. You don't get to have the smoking gun evidence. You got to make the call. Are you taking it to trial or not? Your boss just told you that you're going to prosecute this case. You're taking it to trial. We're not dismissing these charges. We cannot possibly because of the nature of the crime. We can't. And let's throw in a kicker. Let's say this guy's got a rap sheet. Let's just say 3 years ago, he got busted for being in possession of crack cocaine because he was experimental, because he was in college and, he's messing around. And now he's got a criminal record that you're going to use as an enhancer to tell the jury that he deserves to be prosecuted more harshly.
In this case, I would have to take, of course, my client in this case, which is the abused victim. I would take her testimony as sufficient proof enough to put this guy through.
You're going to try to win your case, right?
Of course I will.
Yeah. Knowing in the back of your head
that it could be a possibility,
right?
But it's not.
What about you, Justin? How do you approach it?
The same way. In good faith of the proposed client who's the victim in this case, you would do what you believe they're telling you the truth, right? Because you just have to.
So in the same way, as a defense attorney, I have to, not knowing all the facts, and nobody's going to give me the benefit of having a clear video of exactly what occurred that night that's going to tell the whole story. I have to argue my client's case based on his word and the credibility of our witnesses.
Yep, and that's the reality,
I might be right or wrong. I don't know. I'm not perfect. My analysis of the case, I believe he might be not guilty. Is it possible he did it? Yeah, it is. But this is what we ask the jury to do. They're the ones that get to decide guilt or innocence. I get to argue a case. And at the end of the day, if I'm right or wrong, I'm still going home. I'm going to take the next one, right?
Yep.
But the defendant is the one who has freedom on the line. And in a case like that, that's the true job of a defense attorney. These people that are being falsely accused or possibly falsely accused, it's these wobbler cases where they may or may not be guilty. And you asked me how I could defend such a person. I mean, look, there's people out there that do horrible things, and we know that they do horrible things. Those are the easy case. I've had some of those. But then there's these other ones where if he did what he's accused of, he's a horrible person. But he has a credible story that he might not have done it. And that is why lawyers have the highest instances of substance abuse of any profession.
And mental illness.
Out there, and mental illness. It's a tough job.
It's like morality, juggling with your actual, responsibility as a lawyer. And
the same Disneyland, you don't get to have a clear perspective of who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. And in Disneyland, it's like, oh, there's obviously a dragon right there, and there's obviously a guy dressed like a prince, and there's obviously a princess. It's not so clear when it comes to lawyering.
It's philosophical because you'll never know if what you did was right or wrong. It's just something you have to do. You have to have the belief in your client, regardless.
And that's
Same thing that happens with medical professionals. Like sometimes a person lying in their bed is an assassin.
Yeah.
But you have to treat the person as a regular patient. Same thing attorneys do. And keep in mind that assassin or that assaulter or whoever the person is, the person that's, even if it's a doctor and a lawyer, that professional also has a family. We do this kind of jobs because it's their passion, because we like it. But we also do it to support ourselves. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about. They just think that these kind of professionals are like, I don't know, like
detached
praise people. I don't know, that need nothing.
Yeah.
Well, from the hypothetical given to us by our client, or by our listener.
Already thinking of.
Yes. What I will say is it's not just limited to sexual assault. There are cases like that up and down, where people lie to people all the time because they feel ashamed of something that they got caught doing. But specifically for sexual assault, it's especially heinous because of what's at stake. You ruin somebody's life. They're going to be labeled as a sex offender if you're lying for the rest of their lives. Their freedom and everything else, their reputation is on the line. And we've empowered women to bring these claims, but at the same time, with all of the good that has done, there's a lot of bad that you have to contend with.
Yep.
And so the job of the attorneys is supposed to be get to the bottom of it. And when you take a plea deal, you take the job out of the attorney's hands. I don't get to present evidence if you're just going to say that you're guilty. But that's a decision that the defendant has to make. And they have to do it knowingly and intelligently. And if they don't, then the court cannot accept their plea. And we have to live with the results. So there's not a clear-cut resolution to this issue. We're never going to find a way to stop false allegations of sexual assault. Yeah. And I'm not even saying that what happened to this young lady is a false allegation of sexual assault. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But assuming that it was, just assuming the hypothetical of what our listener said is true, you're never going to have a perfect system for reporting crimes. You're just not.
You know what this reminds me of? The not all men idea. There are women that are scared of men for a variety of reasons. And they're like, well, you shouldn't be. It's not all of us that are like that. But it's like, that's the reality a lot of women have to deal with anyways. Yes. It's just like, there's always that risk. Same way with there's always the risk of if you engage in those, behaviors of drinking and becoming, sexually involved with someone you don't really know. There's always a risk. And it's just something that's always going to be at stake, especially when you're a lawyer and you're representing the client that states what you have to believe is true.
Yes, absolutely. Ladies, we've gone for an hour and 45 minutes. I think it's time to wrap up this show.
Yeah.
I think we had a very successful episode 18. To all of our loyal listeners out there, and we do have a growing audience. And you know what? We're going to keep on getting bigger. I have big things planned for this show. If there's topics that you want us to cover, matter of fact, the topics that we covered on the show today, specifically the Darrell Brooks sentencing, the Sarah Boone case, and this hypothetical came directly from our subscribers. If there's something that you want us to cover, then by all means, contact us, or leave a comment down below, and we will make sure that we cover your topic. And as always, you can find us. We air our shows every Friday afternoon. We have the podcast on whatever podcast you listen to, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever the ones, all the big ones. We're on all the major platforms. Thank you for being our listener. And I hope that you find it in your heart to stick with us for the long term, because I have some big plans for this show and what we're going to start taking on. There's a lot of big cases coming out there that we want to cover. Mm-hmm. There's specifically, there's the Sarah Boone case. There's a lot of other ones too that we want to cover. And if there's anything specifically you want us to cover, by all means, let us know. And with that, thank you all for listening.
Twisted tongue.
I can never talk at the end of shows, man. I get so exhausted doing these things. With that, thank you all for listening, and we will see you all next week. And we love you all, and bye-bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap.
Bye.
Thank you all for listening to the entire podcast. We really do appreciate that. And as always, you can find us on YouTube on the Tilted Lawyer Podcast YouTube channel or on your podcast carrier of choice. If you feel we've presented anything of value, please leave a 5-star rating, like, and subscribe. We always appreciate that kind of thing. And we do look forward to seeing you all again live every Thursday at 3 in the afternoon. We love you all. Take care. Bye-bye.